Next comes the counting of the votes of the presidential electors. This has been codified into law by Section 15 of Title III of the United States Code. According to the 12th Amendment, the process starts with the President of the Senate opening the certificates to be counted. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all the certificates and the votes shall then be counted. Sounds simple enough. When does this counting happen? Well, from Title III, Section 15 of the U.S. Code, Congress shall be in session on the 6th day of January succeeding every meeting of the electors. The Senate and House of Representatives shall meet in the hall of the House of Representatives at the hour of 1 o'clock in the afternoon on that day, and the President of the Senate shall be their presiding officer. According to the 12th Amendment, the only role the President of the Senate has during this session is to open the certificates and have them counted. Congress confirmed this in subsection B of Section 15. Except as otherwise provided in this chapter, the role of the President of the Senate, while presiding over the joint session, shall be limited to performing solely ministerial duties. The President of the Senate shall have no power to solely determine, accept, reject, or otherwise adjudicate or resolve disputes over the proper certificate of assessment of appointments of electors, the validity of electors, or the votes of electors. Sadly, this is where Congress has begun to interfere with the election process. At the joint session of the Senate and House of Representatives described in subsection A, there shall be present 2 tellers previously appointed on the part of the Senate and 2 tellers previously appointed on the part of the House of Representatives by the presiding officers of the respective chambers. Yes, this is a minor point. The Constitution doesn't say how the votes are to be counted. After all, I guess it would assume a group of intelligent men could figure out how to safely and accurately count the votes. Congress, on the other hand, wanted their input on the process. If you read the 12th Amendment, you see Congress has no role in the presidential election unless none of those voted for in office receive a majority. See, contrary to all the January 6th rhetoric, Congress does not certify the election. Let me say that again. Contrary to all of the rhetoric around January 6th, Congress does not certify the election of the president. Here we see that Congress has decided for themselves that they will pick the tellers who will count the votes. That's not the only ways Congress has decided to interfere in the election. It starts with a subtle point. The President of the Senate shall open their certificates and papers purporting to be certificates of the votes of electors appointed pursuant to a certificate of assessment of appointment of electors issued pursuant to Section 5 in the alphabetical order of the states, beginning with the letter A. And, upon opening any certificate, hand the certificate and any accompanying papers to the tellers, who shall then read the same in the presence and hearing of the 2 houses. What are these purported certificates? See, the Constitution says nothing about purported certificates. The 12th Amendment says the President of the Senate will open the certificates he has received from the states and have them counted. So what does this Section 5 say? Not later than the date, that is 6 days before the time fixed for the meeting of the electors, the executive of each state shall issue a certificate of ascertainment of appointment of electors under and in pursuance of the laws of such state, providing for such appointment and ascertainment enacted prior to election day. Now, who the state electors are is none of the United States' business. It is solely a state matter. I suppose the reasoning behind sending the list of electors to the archivists of the United States is to allow fake certificates to be identified and not counted. In fact, federal law claims to establish a rather complicated process for the sending of the certificates from the electors to the President of the Senate and others. The problem is the Constitution does not delegate to Congress the authority to tell states they have to register their electors with the United States or to have their certificates be sent anywhere but the President of the Senate. That's not all of Congress's interference in the election. Upon the reading of each certificate or paper, the President of the Senate shall call for objections, if any. Again, the Constitution does not give Congress any say in counting of the presidential electoral votes. They are there only to observe and act if necessary. So, what are the reasons Congress thinks it can object? The only grounds for objections shall be as follows. The electors of the state were not lawfully certified under a certificate of ascertainment of appointment of electors according to Section 5A1. the vote of one or more electors has not been regularly given. Remember back to January 6, 2021? There were several states that did not lawfully appoint electors, not because of some law made up by Congress, but because the manner of appointing them was modified by state courts or the state Secretary of State, not the legislature. Those objections, though, should have been dealt with at the state level, not with Congress.